I was so excited about my 50th birthday. Half a century of life seemed worth celebrating at least, until they presented me with that crown. Not a dignified crown for a milestone birthday, but a cheap plastic one, with the words King of Letdowns scribbled in marker. Everyone erupted in laughter, my wife Amanda louder than anyone. I forced myself to smile while breaking inside. Still, I grilled the steaks, took all the group photos, and paid for everything. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. And hit that subscribe button if you have ever felt unappreciated by those closest to you. I had been working at Riverside Manufacturing for 22 years. Not the most glamorous job as a middle manager, but it provided stability for my family. I took pride in that. We lived in a comfortable 4-bedroom house in the suburbs of Chicago, had 2 reliable cars in the garage, and never worried about putting food on the table. I turned down 3 promotions over the years, because they required relocating, and Amanda had made it clear she would never leave her hometown. When I married Amanda at 25, we had dreams and plans. She was beautiful, ambitious, and I was completely in love. Our daughter Sophia came along a year later, and our son Jackson arrived when I was 29. I thought we were building something special together. The first major sacrifice came when Amanda decided she wanted to become a nurse. She had been working as a receptionist at a local clinic, and felt she had more to offer. I supported her dream completely. For 3 years, I worked double shifts at the plant, while also taking on weekend consulting jobs. Every extra dollar went toward her tuition and our household expenses, while her income dropped. I would come home exhausted, cook dinner, help the kids with homework, and then study my own work materials at midnight. Amanda was focused on her studies, which I respected. When she graduated, I felt like we had accomplished something together. Then Sophia lost her academic scholarship in her sophomore year of college. Her grades had slipped while she was pledging a sorority. Rather than make her drop out or take on massive loans, I withdrew $40,000 from my retirement account. The penalty and taxes were brutal, but I wanted my daughter to have opportunities I never had. The hardest sacrifice was selling my classic car collection. I had 3 vintage American muscle cars that I had spent 15 years restoring with my own hands. Every weekend was spent in the garage carefully bringing these mechanical treasures back to life. They represented countless hours of passion and craftsmanship. But when Jackson got into legal trouble at 19, the lawyer fees and court costs threatened to bankrupt us. The cars went one by one, sold for far less than they were worth, because we needed cash quickly. Jackson never really acknowledged the sacrifice. My dream had always been to open my own restoration garage. I had the skills, the passion, and even a business plan. Twice I came close to taking the leap. The first time Amanda needed extensive dental work, not covered by insurance. The second time her parents needed financial help after her father had a stroke. My garage fund became their medical fund. I told myself, family comes first, always. Looking back, I should have noticed the signs. The small comments about my boring job from Amanda, comparing me to her friend Susan's husband, who was an executive at a tech company. My children calling only when they needed money, not to share their lives or ask how I was doing. My father-in-law making jokes at family gatherings about how I was still at the same desk after all these years, as if consistency and loyalty were character flaws. For my 50th birthday party, I wanted something special. I requested a single day off work, my first in 3 years. The week before, I spent every evening cleaning the house and yard, mowing the lawn, pressure washing the deck, and trimming the hedges. I bought all the meat for the barbecue, marinating it myself with recipes I had perfected over the years. The party supplies came from my personal account, because I wanted to treat everyone without Amanda worrying about the household budget. As the big day approached, I found myself genuinely excited. 50 felt like a milestone worth commemorating, a moment to reflect on a life of hard work and dedication to my family. I thought perhaps they might finally see all that I had done for them. On my birthday, I woke up at 5:30 a.m., while everyone else slept in. I quietly made myself coffee and started preparing the yard for guests. By 10, I had the tables and chairs set up, coolers filled with ice, and decorations hung. Around noon, Amanda finally emerged from our bedroom. Instead of a happy birthday, her first words were, "Did you remember to get the extra propane tank for the grill? The guests will be here in 3 hours." My sister Jennifer called to say she would be running late. She had a hair appointment she could not reschedule. I assured her it was fine, even though she knew we had planned this date 3 months in advance. As guests started arriving at 3, I was still setting up the grill and preparing food trays by myself. Amanda was inside getting ready, having spent the previous 2 hours doing her hair and makeup. When she finally came outside, she looked beautiful, in her new blue sundress that I had never seen before. She immediately gravitated toward her nursing colleagues, laughing loudly at their jokes while I greeted her parents and our neighbors. Around 4:30, once everyone had arrived, Amanda clinked her glass for attention. The backyard fell silent, as 40 pairs of eyes turned to her. "Everyone, thank you for coming today to celebrate Coleman turning the big 5-0, she announced with theatrical flair. "Before we eat, we have a special presentation for the man of the hour." My son Jackson approached with something hidden behind his back, grinning in a way that made me immediately uneasy. Amanda continued her speech. "As you all know, Coleman has been many things over the years. A husband, a father, a provider," she paused dramatically, "and occasionally a bit of a letdown." The crowd chuckled uncomfortably. I forced a smile, not wanting to ruin the moment, but something cold settled in my stomach. "So today we crown him officially," she proclaimed as Jackson pulled out a plastic dollar store crown. Someone had written "King of Letdowns" in black marker across the front, decorated with a sad face emoji drawn in blue. The crowd erupted in laughter. My brother-in-law Tom was practically wheezing, slapping his knee with delight. Even my own children were laughing. My friend Rick from work looked uncomfortable, but said nothing, studying his beer intently. Amanda began listing my greatest letdowns. Missing Sophia's college graduation because of a work emergency. Forgetting her parents' anniversary party because I had written the wrong date in my calendar. Being too tired to fully engage on family vacations after working 60-hour weeks to pay for them. With each example, the laughter grew. The knife in my chest twisted deeper, but I maintained my smile. What else could I do in front of everyone? Jackson placed the crown on my head, while Sophia took photos with her phone. I never knew forgetting to buy vanilla ice cream for movie night 10 years ago would make it onto a greatest hits list of my failures. I joked weakly, which only encouraged more stories. Throughout the party, the crown became a recurring joke. Every time I came to the table, someone would reference it. When I brought out the grilled steaks, my neighbor called out, "Hope these are not a letdown like your fantasy football picks." More laughter. Amanda told the story of how I once attempted to fix our leaking shower and ended up having to call a plumber to repair my repair. The way she told it, I was a bumbling idiot rather than someone trying to save us money during a tight financial month. Her sister nodded knowingly as if this confirmed everything she had heard about me. Sophia chimed in with the time I had promised to teach her to drive but got too nervous when she nearly hit a mailbox. What she left out was how I had arranged for professional driving lessons the very next day, because I wanted her to learn properly and safely. The worst moment came when I was refilling the cooler with ice. Around the corner of the house, I overheard Jackson talking to his friends. "Dad is too afraid of life to ever leave this town, or Mom," he said with the casual cruelty of youth. "He is like permanently stuck in his comfort zone." Minutes later, while grabbing more napkins from the kitchen, I overheard Amanda telling her sister, "He will just grill and pay like always, that is all he is good for." I continued serving food, refilling drinks, and making sure everyone had what they needed. I took the group photos with the camera on timer, so I could be in some of them still wearing that ridiculous crown, because everyone insisted it stay on for the pictures. By the end of the night, I had become a caricature in my own life story. The dependable punchline, the reliable disappointment. After the last guest left around 11, I found myself cleaning up alone. The family had disappeared inside, exhausted from all the socializing. Amanda called out from upstairs that she was going to bed. Neither of the kids offered to help. This was normal, expected even. In the kitchen, I found the crown tossed carelessly into the trash, alongside paper plates and plastic cups. I stared at it for a long moment, this symbol of how they truly saw me. Not as the man who had given everything, but as the man who somehow still had not given enough. With the house finally quiet and clean, I poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey and sat alone on the patio. The night was clear stars visible despite the city lights. I scrolled through family photos on my phone, images spanning decades. The children as babies, first days of school, vacations at the lake, holidays. In most of them, I was behind the camera, not in the frame. The words of my father came back to me. He had pulled me aside at my wedding and said, "Son, do not ever let yourself become invisible. It is a slow death." I had not understood his warning then. I did now. What was the inventory of my life? 22 years at a job I tolerated because it provided security. Thousands of overtime hours worked to fund other people's dreams and fix their mistakes. A retirement account half empty. A marriage where respect had slowly eroded into contempt. Children who saw me as an ATM and occasional chauffeur. As the ice melted in my glass, a clarity emerged through the pain. Nothing would change if I did not change it. The pattern would continue possibly for another 20 or 30 years until I truly was empty. I opened my laptop there on the patio table and began researching apartments in Portland, Oregon. I had visited once for a manufacturing conference and fallen in love with the city, its mountains, its creative energy, its distance from Chicago. Within an hour, I had found several affordable options near the downtown area. Next came the flight search. A one-way ticket 2 weeks out. Enough time to get affairs in order, but not so long that I might lose my resolve. I entered my credit card details and clicked confirm. The email confirmation arrived seconds later. Over the next few days, I created a new email account they would not recognize, opened a separate bank account, and transferred half of our joint savings. It was money I had earned, and I left half for family expenses. I was not looking to punish them financially, just to start over with enough security to land on my feet. I began the 2-week countdown with a strange sense of calm. At work, I updated my resume during lunch breaks and reached out to contacts in my industry who had connections in Portland. I had 2 phone interviews that went well with companies that seemed impressed by my experience and work ethic. One lunch break, I visited our bank's safe deposit box and collected my birth certificate, social security card, and other important documents. The teller smiled and asked if we were planning a trip. I just smiled back. I said subtle goodbyes to trusted coworkers. Nothing obvious, nothing that would get back to Amanda, but small conversations of appreciation and reminiscence that gave me closure. At home, nothing had changed. The Crown incident was never mentioned again. Everyone returned to their routines, as if the party had never happened. Amanda made dinner requests without asking about my day. The kids texted when they needed money for something. The normal I had accepted for so long now felt like a prison sentence. The final night before my departure, we had spaghetti for dinner, my cooking as usual. No one noticed I was quieter than normal. After everyone went to bed, I wrote a brief note explaining that I needed time away to rethink my life. I did not mention Portland or my specific plans. I wrote that I had left sufficient funds in the joint account for bills and expenses. I packed a single suitcase with essential clothing and a few personal items. No photographs, no mementos. Those memories lived in a past I was now leaving behind. As I walked through the darkened house one final time, I touched the walls, the door frames, the countertops. 20 years of my life contained within these walls. I looked at the family photos on the mantel, smiling faces that had gathered to laugh at me just 2 weeks before. I slipped my wedding ring off my finger and placed it on top of the note on the kitchen counter. The indent on my finger felt strange, vulnerable. The taxi arrived at 4:30 a.m. Lights off to avoid waking the neighbors. I closed the front door quietly behind me, stepped into the waiting car, and gave the driver the airport address. As we pulled away from the curb, I did not look back. My new apartment in Portland was small but had an incredible view of the mountains. On clear days, I could see Mount Hood in the distance, snow-capped and majestic. I found a job at a local restoration garage entry-level despite my years of experience. The owner, Dave, was impressed with my knowledge of classic engines and promised advancement if I proved myself. The first weeks were an exercise in solitude. I spoke only to coworkers, cashiers, and occasionally the elderly man who walked his golden retriever past my building each morning. The silence in my apartment was both liberating and terrifying. For the first time in decades, I had no one to consider but myself. I found a small coffee shop 3 blocks from my apartment that became my weekend ritual. The owner, Walter, was a Vietnam veteran in his 70s who recognized a man running from something. He never asked direct questions but offered perspectives that helped me process my thoughts. We talked about cars, sports, Portland history, anything but what I had left behind. Meanwhile, according to my separate email account that still received family financial notifications, life in Chicago continued. Credit card charges showed restaurants shopping normal activities. No one seemed to be in crisis mode. That changed around day 10. The frantic emails began first from Amanda, then Sophia, then even Jackson. "Where are you? What have you done? How could you just leave?" The tone quickly shifted from confusion to anger. Amanda convinced herself this was a childish tantrum that would resolve once I got this stupidity out of my system. She expected me back within days, resuming my role as if nothing had happened. By the 3rd week, reality was setting in for them. Amanda had to ask her father for help with the mortgage payment, despite the money I had left. Sophia called my workplace, only to learn I had submitted my resignation. Jackson actually drove around to local hotels looking for my car, not realizing it was still parked in our garage. The turning point came when Sophia found my old journals in the basement while searching for clues to my whereabouts. I had documented years of small moments, disappointments, and unacknowledged sacrifices. Through my written words, she saw for the first time the slow erosion of my spirit. She read about the day I sold my beloved 1968 Mustang to pay for her brother's legal fees, how I had sat in it one last time running my hands over the dashboard I had restored inch by inch. That discovery led to her Facebook post a public plea that one of my remaining online connections forwarded to my new email. "If anyone sees my dad Coleman Wilson, please tell him we are sorry," she wrote. "We never realized how much he gave up for us until he was gone. Dad, if you see this, we were cruel and thoughtless at your birthday. The crown was my idea, and it was unforgivably mean. We treated you like you did not matter when you were the foundation of everything good in our lives. Please come home, or at least let us know you are safe." The post included a family photo from Christmas 2 years earlier, one of the few where I was actually in the frame, rather than taking the picture. Comments flooded in, many from party guests, expressing regret for participating in the crown humiliation. My brother-in-law Tom wrote a particularly lengthy apology, admitting he should have spoken up rather than laughing along. What they did not know is that I had found something unexpected in Portland. Not just a new job or apartment, but pieces of myself long forgotten. I rediscovered my passion for restoring engines. I started sketching car designs again, a hobby abandoned in my 20s. I took a weekend photography class at the community center. I tried new foods, explored hiking trails, and even went on a date with a bookstore owner named Diane, though I was not ready for anything serious. Most importantly, I was learning to prioritize my own needs and desires after decades of putting everyone else first. My therapist, Dr. Harris, helped me understand that self-sacrifice becomes self-harm when it is neither acknowledged nor reciprocated. When I finally responded to Sophia with an email, my hands trembled over the keyboard. I told her I was safe and well. I explained that I needed this separation to understand who I was outside of being a husband and father roles that had consumed my identity completely. I set clear boundaries. I would not disclose my location yet. I would communicate only through email for now. Any reconciliation would require individual apologies and acknowledgement of specific behaviors that had hurt me. What followed were weeks of honest, often painful communication. Amanda initially blamed me for abandoning my responsibilities, but eventually recognized her years of subtle undermining and dismissal. Jackson acknowledged treating me like a bank account rather than a father. Sophia admitted orchestrating the crown humiliation in a misguided attempt at humor, never considering how it would make me feel. I suggested family therapy before any in-person reunion. To my surprise, they agreed. After 3 months of separate sessions, I flew back to Chicago for a supervised family meeting with their therapist. The conversations were difficult, but necessary. I made it clear I would not be moving back. My life was in Portland now. They would need to accept this new reality if they wanted me in their lives. 6 months after my departure, my family visited Portland. I showed them my small apartment, introduced them to my colleagues at the garage, and took them to my favorite spots in the city. The dynamic had fundamentally changed. They asked questions about my life, and actually listened to the answers. Amanda commented that she had never seen me look so at peace. The irony was not lost on me. I had to leave to be truly seen. I had to break their image of me as the reliable disappointment to show them who I really was. In that painful rupture came the possibility of authentic connection. I still live in Portland. I am now the head restoration specialist at the garage and have started taking on private clients. I visit Chicago several times a year, staying in a hotel rather than the family home. Amanda and I are divorced but maintain a civil friendship. Sophia moved to Seattle just 3 hours away and visits monthly. Jackson calls weekly with updates on his life, no longer just when he needs something. The greatest lesson in all of this was learning that self-respect is not selfish. Boundaries are not abandonment. And sometimes the most profound act of love is having the courage to walk away from people who do not value you, even when those people are family. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect your dignity? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it is never too late to stand up for yourself. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that sometimes walking away is the only way to find your true path forward. I appreciate each of you for taking the time to hear my story.